Hello and welcome to Zoid's YouTube channel for another video, and I've been recently talking about each chapter of my new book, Search for a New Sound, which I'm 5 chapters in. The first chapter is on Aphex, second chapter is on Squarepusher, third chapter is on Autechre, fourth chapter is on Boards of Canada, and fifth chapter is on techno in general, how techno influenced me, and my 3 picks of techno tracks. So at this point, I think the next chapter I'm going to write about Warp Records and why the hell is the UK the place where all those 4 artists that I mentioned happen to all be from the UK. Contemporary electronic music, the giants of it, are all from the UK in terms of this type of music, IDM. And that's very strange to me. Why is the UK, England and Scotland hitting so much above its weight? Like, the population 60 million, and there's so many other countries, Germany, America, you know, where they have countless music producers, electronic music producers, but the ones, the innovators of this type of music, the ones that I chose, I didn't choose them based on the fact they were from the UK, you know, it just happens to be that they are. So why? And Warp Records as well, they're all on Warp Records, those 4 artists. Is it a coincidence that they're on the same label? What's going on there? So in this video, I want to delve in a bit into what kind of reasons there might be for the UK having this talent cluster of electronic music, you know, and many other ones, obviously LFO, and too many to name, literally too many. How did Warp Records start? You know, I've got this book that I bought recently and I've been reading it. It's very interesting. So Warp Records was from Sheffield. It was started by a couple of guys called Steve Beckett and Rob Mitchell. A couple of guys in Sheffield who were interested in music. And there was another guy who was involved with the label called Robert Gordon, who was an engineer, audio engineer, mix engineer, and he was known as the guy who could do some pretty kind of impossible things. So they put out a record called Forge Masters, was the first release. The first 3 releases were Forge Masters, Track with No Name, in 1989, and then Nightmares on Wax Dextrous. And also that year, and then remixes of Sweet Exorcist Test 1. That was in 1990.
Everything's ready.
They're the first 3 releases. The releases used to have this purple covers. I've got a few of those. So they worked in a record shop called Fawn, and Sheffield sounds like it had a few things going for it, which was a lot of music, a great music scene. There'd been post-punk bands there, and a little bit like Manchester, kind of melting pot of music. And I have to wonder, like, is there a benefit when a city is a bit smaller? It's not like London, you know, the huge cities tend to get more segregated scenes, I think, because the nature of it is, if a city has 20 million people, then you're going to have a scene that's like big enough. You know, 10 different scenes is one for this specific type of music, and this for another one for another specific type of music. So when the city's a bit smaller, like Sheffield would be, then all the musicians know each other in all the scenes, and there's a lot more intermingling. I wonder if that is a factor. And then it seems they had a local council in Sheffield which was quite supportive of the arts, and there was grants and things for making studio spaces, and that's what the Warp founders got one of these and created studios, and where they had the record shop fun. I remember these Blech mixes. They were on cassette tapes. They're so good. I was listening to one the other day. Blech mixes are amazing. All the Warp music, you know, Autechre, all the really well mixed together, just all from the Warp catalog. And when you hear that, the quality of the music, and you know, I just think that is me music. I associate it with like my teenage years, and it's just amazing just to think, oh, there's loads of people around the world who love this as well. And I really associate, like, I bet you I would get on with anyone who loves those Blech mixes. I would like to hang out with. It's a funny kind of feeling. This is a great picture. It's a picture of Aphex, Squarepusher, Sean and Rob from Autechre, and that guy is George Evelyn from Nightmares on Wax. Warp had this really cool website in the 90s. Must have been the late 90s. I remember it really vividly. The website was like really cool, had all these little things that would shift and move on the screen, little slots and Lego bits coming in and out. And it was like, yeah, it was the first time I ever ordered something on the internet. It was so early. My dad was like freaked about putting his credit card number into the internet. You know, what would happen? You'd get stolen or something. And, you know, I convinced him. I was like 16 or probably at the time. So I like convinced him, no, it's okay. And then like ordering a record directly from Warp and having it sent over. That was like such a buzz. This before Bleep. There was like the Warp Records site, and they had a shop and you could order records. And I remember one time going on there and there was a new release, and it was the Come to Daddy EP, and it was a double pack, vinyl double pack. And I thought, oh, I'll definitely get that. I'll come back later and I'll get it. And I came back later, like a few hours later, and it was gone. And there's very few copies of that double pack. It's a single 12-inch Come to Daddy. I got the single 12-inch, but you couldn't wait. Like, it never got repressed, the double pack. So, you know, there were a few copies of it that for a few hours it was available. The design as well. They worked with Designers Republic. The design of Warp. It's just, it doesn't look like anything else. The record covers. There's a page with lots of the record covers. Here's 2 pages with all album covers from Warp. They're so good, and you know they're all very different from each other, because obviously the different artists, a lot of diverse artists. Look at the Autechre ones and Aphex ones, and it's a bit all over the place, but I like that. Makes me think, oh, you know, for my label, Zoitrax, I'm also it's a little bit like that. You know, everything looks like there's no overall overarching theme going on aesthetically for me. And that was what it was like for Warp as well. They have a lot of, like, the Smoker's Delight, Nightmares on Wax, like, there's a lot of different stuff. So why would Warp Records just happen to have access to so many great artists in the UK? Well, there's a few things I can think of about England and Scotland that make it particularly fertile for electronic music. The first one is the Windrush generation. In 1948, the British Nationality Act gave people from colonies the right to live and work in Britain. The government needed workers to help fill post-war labour shortages and rebuild the economy. Caribbean countries were also struggling economically, and job vacancies in the UK offered an opportunity. People coming from the West Indies, from Jamaica especially. Jamaican populations came to England and brought with them sound system culture in the 70s and 80s. And that sound system culture just took root in England, and it is a strong seed that developed into the UK electronic music scene. You know, if you listen to King Tubby and Jamaican dub music, it was so electronic, even though they were recording bass and drummers, what they were doing, they were inventing this idea of studio as an instrument before Brian Eno even did it. They were just like playing like with long delays and just using their mixing desks like an instrument, just throwing stuff into long delays and getting this like this dubbed out music that was definitely a forerunner of electronic music the way we know it. Techno and house music and acid music, and a lot of it is still quite dubby. So I think that was a big reason. And also there was a youth who were pretty disenfranchised in England, like, you know, their parents a lot of the time in Northern England, they were miners and mines were closing, and it was a hard time economically to know what to do. So a lot of young people were just like floating around and looking for creative outlets and finding music. So a lot of people did that. Aphex worked in a mine. The economic situation definitely led to, you know, there wasn't much work, there wasn't much job, so a lot of younger people were probably just like getting into music and making music all the time. Apart from that, I really can't think of any other reasons why the UK was such a fertile ground for electronic music. But each place kind of has its moment. Okay, so I actually asked on Insta and YouTube ideas people had about why the UK, and I got quite a lot of interesting answers. So things like, you English people have been taking ideas from America and running with it, you know, since the 60s with the great rock bands like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, the Kinks, etc., etc. They based their music basically on the blues and black music from America, and then they did their own take and exported it back. Also, the oppressive weather makes people just stay and do creative activities. Weather's pretty shit in England. In the 80s, there was bands like Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, and New Order. They were very influential on later swathes of electronic musicians. Many people in the UK had parents who were part of the free party scene. That was a bit later on, that was in the 90s. But then people who grew up with like Prodigy in the household instead of Led Zeppelin or Motown. Oppressive governments were, you know, they had like this centralized radio, which wasn't very good. So it caused this kind of countercultural pirate radio scene. Like in London with Jungle, the pirate radios were a really important part of it. But England just had the edge. And I already had like the Beatles and David Bowie and stuff in the 60s. So, and Kate Bush, that kind of experimentation in pop music was there. So, you know, as well, the weather's pretty awful in England. You know, I'm from Ireland, it's even worse there, but I wonder if that has a factor too. You know, it's just, if it's raining all the time, just stay indoors, stay in your studio, make music. So from what I know right now, those are all the reasons. But I'd love to know your thoughts if you can think of other reasons why the UK is such a fertile ground specifically for IDM. There's loads of festivals and gigs and stuff. Anyway, that's it for today. So see you next week.